Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. On today's video, I'm going to talk all about pacing. What is it? How can we focus on it to get better performances and ultimately get more laughs from our jokes? And I do believe that if you pay a little bit more attention to your pacing on stage, you don't even need to change any of your written material or any of your jokes at all. You will get 5-10% better reaction from the audience by just having better pacing overall. And the reason I've come up to this conclusion is that I've been doing critique videos for viewers of the channel, and this is the one problem that arises time and time again. Comedians starting out in their career, at the beginning of the career, haven't thought about the overall tempo of the set they are performing. By the way, if you're interested in having your own comedy set critiqued by me, I will give you back about 30 or 40 minutes of ideas for your set. If you're interested in that, all of the information and how to go about doing that is in the description box. Also, you'll notice that I am going to do this video as live as I can with as little editing as possible. That's because I'm sick of editing, and when I just talk to the camera, the ideas are better. Yes, it destroys the viewership to the channel, but I don't really give a shit. I would rather just tell you all the good stuff. So I'm going to not miss any of that. First of all, we're going to talk about pausing in your set, how we can pause in between our material and jokes and at the end of punchlines to get a better reaction, to drag out more laughter, and to create more tension during our setup so that the punchlines hit harder. Secondly, we're going to move on to how we can vary our tempo in the set. We can speed up and slow down and take the audience on more of a journey, more of a fun time, rather than just being the same rhythm throughout. And then finally, I'm going to move on to audience feedback. We're always looking at how the audience perceives us. If you're in a one-on-one conversation, you're not going to not watch the person you're talking to because they might not be listening to you. And if they're not listening to you, you need to get their attention in the conversation. An audience is the exact same thing. Just because you're on stage and they're sitting down in front of you, don't expect them to all be listening to what it is you're saying. There's a couple of basics we need to cover first, and if we do them well, then the audience will have no choice but to watch us because we've ticked all the correct boxes. Even if they don't feel that we have, and subconsciously they just have to pay attention to us. Okay, so how the hell can we go about doing all of this? Pausing is the first thing I'm going to talk about. I think it's so important. So in our sets, you go up on stage. It's really important. We can do this before we even get on stage. You don't have to practice this on stage. You can practice this at home. That's the great thing about it. You can look at your writing, and if you have your writing on a laptop, you can add a couple of spaces between your sentences. And just like I'm doing now, you can pause a little bit in between the words. Now, when I do this in a conversational way with no punchline at the end, it gets boring very, very quickly. But the difference is you're a performer on stage while you're up there. And everything on stage is fine to be slower than in real life. You have to get that into your head. It's going to be slower than you would like it to be. If you're a slow type of performer, you're probably already performing too fast. If you're kind of a madcap performer and you want to do absurd things and you want to be a crazy character, that's fantastic. Be that character. Be the character you want to be. But usually those kind of performers go on stage and they think, oh, I got to perform real fast. They can't see what's coming around the corner from when I'm on stage. I'm going to just, give it to them really, really quick. Well, you're going to lose an audience, right? There needs to be pauses. There needs to be time to breathe. There needs to be time to let the material breathe. There needs to be time to let the audience know and get to know who you are. Because let's think about it. From the audience's point of view, right? Because you've got your set, and your set is your set, and it's great, and you've worked on it, and you've memorized it, and you know all the good stuff, and you know all the funny parts that are coming up. The audience don't know who the hell you are. They've never heard your material before. They don't know what style of comedy you like to do. None of that's obvious to them. We need to spoon feed them that information when we get on stage. But we have to consider a few things. The venue they're in is most likely not set up for comedy. That's going to go against you. The acts on the night are all varying in quality and they're all very different, and they too have all got something to say. So from an audience point of view, you're sitting in an open mic room that isn't designed for comedy. The MC that's running the night is shit, and you're on the second half, and people already want to go home, right? Because the night's gone on way too long. Well, how are you then going to go up and just deliver your material as quickly as you can? The reason that pauses are in the basics of comedy is because every time you pause on stage, it the tension creates. Everybody nearly leans forward to see what you have to say next. Please take me out of this tense position you've put me in. So the more we can set them up with information that's humorous and pause around it, the more humorous tension we create. And if our punchlines at the end of these small sections of information are worthy of being punchlines, well, then we break that tension correctly and the audience love us for it. And that's the rhythm that we have between the audience. That's the relationship we have between them. We teach them to trust in us, that we can take them to a place that's tense, and we use that by deliberately putting in pauses in between the lines we say. Also, you might think, well, tension creates when you tell them information. Well, yeah, but information with the pauses. If, yet again, you're in a one-on-one conversation, you're not just going to meet someone for the first time and open up about yourself and tell them what you do for a living, just the same way you would at a comedy night, and never stop to wait so they can absorb at least some of the information you're giving them. It's a back and forth. Like when you stop, it's almost as if that's the moment for the audience to give you back feedback, to let them know how they feel. And they do let you know how they feel. They're not all going to start talking to you, but they let you know how they feel if you can realize they're all still paying attention. So that's why we have pauses in the sets, to just let them keep up with the information, because the information you tell them is really important, because there's going to be a punchline that comes after it. And if they don't listen to the information, if they're not on board with who you are, if they're not on board with how you are describing whatever topic of interest it is, or whatever thing about yourself it is, well, then they're not going to be there for the punchline, and the punchline is wasted. No matter how funny it is, it's not going to get over well, because you haven't let the audience on board. So add pausing into your sets. Now, you might think that's easier said than done because you're shy on stage and you can't bear the idea of just saying nothing for a while. I know it's nerve-wracking. I know it is. But the great thing about this, the first time you start adding pauses into your sets, it's kind of brutal, it's kind of rough, but it's one of those things that gets easy very, very quickly because it makes sense to do. It's a natural way of talking. And the reason that you're always nervous on stage, if you haven't already done this, is because the way you're communicating at the moment is not natural for you. You need to add pauses because that's how you talk day-to-day life. So if you were to record yourself talking in a conversation with a friend that you are comfortable around, well, and you listen back, you'll notice that actually there's a lot of pauses and your diction is very relaxed. And it's almost like, you're talking to the audience then, if you were able to put that on stage like a person you've known all the time. So when you're practicing your sets, imagine a person in mind, imagine a friend in mind that likes your humor, that finds you funny when you're hanging out with them. Well, have them in mind when you're practicing your sets. And maybe then you'll notice that, oh, I say this particular joke in a different way if I have that person in mind. So if that's something that you need to do, it's a really good trick to make yourself talk in a conversational style, in a relaxed, playful style. Just have someone in your mind that responds to you well. Obviously, you're not going to have someone in your mind that absolutely hates you. Maybe you get off on that, that's fine. We're going to move on to tempo, overall tempo of your set, and how we can, like a musician, we can speed up and slow down around that one tempo. So if we kind of think pretty much a universal tempo would be, got a bit of swing to it. That's nice, right? Right here. Now, you might be looking at the camera going, what the hell is this idiot doing? And what I mean by this, right? What I mean by that is that's going to be the overall tempo, and you can go fast or slow, but you always catch up to that speed. Now, whatever tempo you come up with is fine, but I would nearly say whatever tempo you click to, I want you to slow it down just a little bit. And literally, while you're practicing at home, rather than just learning how to say the words and the jokes and remembering them, like practicing so we remember them, like remembering them is fine, but that's not the end goal here. We're not just remembering the jokes to stay on stage, because then you get up on stage and you memorize them and you say them all and you're not in the moment. I want you to memorize them so that they can be said in a tempo and there's a rhythm to your overall set. And sometimes you speed up, but because you add pauses, you allow that click to catch up with where you are. And then you can speed up again, or you can keep with the click and you can slow down and let the click go ahead of you. And that creates huge tension. And then we speed up again, maybe during a punchline or after a punchline. We got a little bit of information after it, our second or third punchline. So we can look at our set and without changing anything at all, with using pauses and with our overall tempo, now we have an understanding of, okay, I can create rhythm to this set. Because we're only on stage for, what, 5-10 minutes at the beginning of a career, right? So it shouldn't be that hard to have the same rhythm throughout. And you'll notice if you look at any really successful comedian, your favorite comedian, watch them on stage, the overall tempo never changes. Next time you're watching your favorite comedian, literally you can click along to what you perceive is the overall tempo of how they are addressing the audience on stage, and you'll find that it very rarely changes at all. They speed up and slow down, but ultimately they always catch up to the same point. Let's move on to the last one. And this is the most important one. I think really paying attention while we're in the room and watching the audience. So if we're going to add pauses into the set, if we're going to create a tempo and an overall click for our set, an overall swing, an overall feel for it. Beautiful. These are all fun things to do. They don't require any new writing. Obviously, we're doing that all the time anyway because we're fucking mental. But an overall swing to the set, and we're creating pauses, and we're having fun doing this, and it's bringing out new humor in our sets. It's bringing out a new sense of energy in our sets. This is all good stuff. This is all fun to perform. This is the fun stuff we're in there, right? It's also advanced, but you can start at early in your career and get way ahead of everyone else because you know this kind of stuff exists. Now, the most crucial part is to pay attention to the audience. Be in the room with them. I have seen this time and time again where you have rehearsed your set so much, you know every word in that set, but why rehearse it? Okay, well, I want to rehearse it so that I get on stage and I cover everything I want to cover. I explain every single thing about myself. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's actually not the whole reason we rehearse our sets. The reason you rehearse your set within an inch of its life is so that you don't need to do the entire set. You can go off on tangents and you can be in the room with these real strangers that you just met and you're trying to win over. You can go to any direction with them, and your set is so well rehearsed, you can jump back in whenever, wherever you want. And you know it's going to be rock solid. So if you're talking about something to do with your hobbies and you notice something or somebody says something or there's a thing in the room that you just thought an observational point of view that might be funny to say, and I always say on this channel, mentioning anything funny about what is happening in the room or the way the room is set up is gold comedy because it has something in common with the audience. They're all in the same room. Every time you see something funny about the room, say it, and it'll win the audience over a little bit in your favor, and then go back into your written material. But we can't do that unless the set is rehearsed within an inch of its life. So when you rehearse the set, great, but it's not just about getting up on stage just so you can get A, B, C, D, and every single word of your set correct. I'd nearly urge you to riff on some ideas just so you can pay attention to the audience in the room. And that is going to be all about pacing. They are going to be constantly telling you about your pacing. You will know by looking at them if you need to slow down or speed up. Usually it's slow down. And the reason you'll know is because if you look into somebody's eyes when you are saying your set, it'll immediately feel awkward. Now that's for a few reasons. One reason is because you're nervous on stage, and that's fine. That you should be nervous on stage. Stage is a nerve-wracking place to be, especially at the beginning of your career. I would urge you should be always nervous on stage because you should be always doing something that makes you nervous, right? Shouldn't be ever be bored on stage. If you're bored on stage, you're not doing something new enough to push yourself to make yourself a little bit better. Okay, that's that point. And the other point is if you look at into someone's eyes and you say the set a little bit too fast, you're going to feel uncomfortable because why would I talk to somebody one on one at this speed? You simply wouldn't. You would slow down. And audiences are just like that. Imagine them to be one big person. I mean, there are many, many people, so they need to be given the information even slower than you think they need to be given. All stage comedy, all stage performance is slower than that on TV, than that in real life situations of one on one conversations. And they don't transcend well. Now, of course, you can watch your favorite comedian on their Netflix special, and that's translating very well, even though it's slow performances. But you have to understand, it's edited within an inch of its life, and those comedians have had over a year of nothing but rehearsing that one set specifically for it being recorded for Netflix or whatever else platform it's going to be on. It's a different type of thing. The vast majority of performers that I've ever met, in fact, all of them, if you record their set and watch it back, it feels way too slow to watch. So don't worry about looking back at footage and thinking, oh my God, I'm making a fool of myself. This is way too slow. Because the fact was, in the room at that time, it was not performed too slow. So don't think that just because you're a comedian on stage, well, they perform slow, but yet it's much faster than what I do. It's usually not. We all got to slow down a little bit. And by paying attention to the audience, they are going to be consistently telling you all of this stuff. You don't need to hear it from me. All you need to do is look off the stage and actually be in the room with them, not just getting through your set as quick as you can, because, oh, there's a great joke coming up now in a bit. If I just get through this setup and tell them about my weird hobbies I have and the relationship I have. Well, I got a relationship and I'm in this thing and I do this. And, oh, yeah. And then the punchline. Well, that's not how you would talk one-on-one to in a conversation to a person you just met if you're trying to win them over. It's all about winning over the audience. And if they laugh and they give you a round of applause after that laughter to break that tension and the punchline was great, that means they really, really like you. If you're not getting that kind of reaction in your set, a big, huge laugh followed by a little round of applause, at least once or twice in your set, they haven't been won over by you. And that's a hard fact. But if you're not getting that kind of reaction, they haven't been won over by you 100% yet. Now, a lot of new comedians that are sending me in their footage, they have that already down in their set. They've already got those massive moments, and they've done so with pacing. It's not usually because they are the best writer. It's not that they have the best joke that I've ever heard or anyone else has ever heard. They've done so because they have a good joke, but it's delivered well with pacing. They understand that after a punchline, perhaps I can let that punchline sit there a little longer. So there's a pause after a punchline. And after that, when the moment is right, they add on a second punchline. They don't put the second punchline at the end of the laugh for the joke to fizzle away because, well, you're at the end of the wave of that laugh. Why would you add anything to it? Let it settle down and maybe a pause here and then a secondary punchline to get another laugh afterwards. These are the kind of ways you can play with your set if you just add a little bit of pausing here and there. How about pausing in the middle of setting up before a punchline? You just pause every now and then, and if you're describing information about yourself, a couple of things about yourself off top of the show, which most of us do, right? We get on stage and we tell the audience a few things about ourselves. Well, adding in a few pauses there, even a look to the audience now and then, it gets a chuckle. Anything you do while you're in a pause mode is going to amplify the humor and the playfulness of your set because you're going to seem like a person who isn't shitting their pants. It's just a way to fake it. Okay, that is the deep dive and 3 techniques, 3 things to look out for on pausing and how you can win over the audience even more than you were already doing so. Okay, if you've enjoyed this video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, send me all your money, dick pics, everything. I accept all of it. And if you're interested in the critique videos, jump on down into this description box and check me out there. And I'll get back to you and we can talk more comedy. I hope you like this unedited video because it's all I'm doing for the rest of the channel. And if you don't like it, you can fuck off.